In his Life of Milton, Johnson observes, "I cannot but remark a kind of respect, perhaps unconsciously, paid to this great man by his biographers. Every house in which he resided is historically mentioned, as if it were an injury to neglect naming any place that he honored by his presence." I had, before I read this observation, been desirous of showing that respect to Johnson by various inquiries. Finding him this evening in a very good humor, I prevailed on him to give me an exact list of his places of residence since he entered the metropolis as an author, which I subjoined in a note. And here's the note, in case you want to write this down. This is all the places Johnson reports to having lived at. 1. Exeter Street off Catherine Street, Strand. 2. Greenwich. 3. Woodstock Street near Hanover Square. 4. Castle Street, Cavendish Square. Number 65, Strand. Number 6, Boswell Court. Number 7, Strand again. Number 8, Bow Street. Number 9, Holborn. Number 10, Fetter Lane. Number 11, Holborn again. Number 12, Gough Square, Gough. Number 13, Staple Inn. Number 14, Gray's Inn. Number 15, Inner Temple Lane. Number 1, 16, Johnson Court. Number 7, 17, Bolt Court. Number 8. I think I was reading that wrong, but you look, you go on Google, you'll find it anyway. Or you go to London, I'm sure there's. I mentioned to him a dispute between a friend of mine and his lady concerning conjugal infidelity, which my friend had maintained was by no means so bad in the husband as in the wife. Now, interesting, it says here he mentioned a friend of mine and his lady, but there's no footnote here indicating who editors think that might be, which is unusual. They usually do that. And I'm afraid Johnson's going to not come on the side of women again. Johnson said, "Your friend was in the right, sir. Between a man and his maker, it is a different question, but between a man and his wife, a husband's infidelity is nothing. They are connected by children, by fortune, by serious considerations of community. Wise married women don't trouble themselves about infidelity in their husbands." I said, "To be sure, there is a great difference between the offense of infidelity in a man and that of his wife." Johnson said, "The difference is boundless. The man imposes no bastards upon his wife." Here it may be questioned whether Johnson was entirely in the right. I suppose it will not be controverted that the difference in the degree of criminality is very great on account of consequences, but still it may be maintained that, independent of moral obligation, infidelity is by no means a light offense in a husband. Oh, the irony here. Because it must hurt a delicate attachment in which a mutual constancy is implied with such refined sentiments as Massinger has exhibited in his play of The Picture. Johnson probably at another time would have admitted this opinion. And let it be kept in remembrance that he was very careful not to give any encouragement to irregular conduct. A gentleman, this is Boswell himself, not adverting to the distinction made by him upon this subject, supposed a case of singular perversiveness in a wife, and heedlessly said that then he thought a husband might do as he pleased with his safe conscience, meaning he could sleep around. Johnson said, "Nay, sir, this is wild indeed," smiling. "You must consider that fornication is a crime in a single man, and you cannot have more liberty by being married." So in other words, to Johnson, you shouldn't be sleeping around anyway, I guess. He this evening expressed himself strongly against the Roman Catholics, although in the past he has not. That's my editorial. Observing, in everything in which they differ from us, they are wrong. He was even against the invocation of saints. In short, he was in the humor of opposition. Having regretted to him that I had learned little Greek, as is too generally the case in Scotland, that I had for a long time hardly applied at all to the study of that noble language, and that I was desirous of being told by him what method to follow, he recommended to me as easy helps Sylvanus's first book of the Iliad, Dawson's Lexicon to the Greek New Testament, and the Hesiod with Besor's Lexicon at the end of it. I'm sure there's better books now for this. On Tuesday, October 12th, I dined with Johnson at Mr. Ramsay's, with Lord Newhaven and some other company, none of whom I recollect, but a beautiful Miss Graham, now the lady of Sir Henry Dashwood, a relation of his lordship's, who asked Dr. Johnson to hob or nob with her. Hob or nob. He was flattered by such pleasing attention and politely told her he never drank wine. Oh, is that what hobnob means? Drink wine? But if she would drink a glass of water, he was much at her service. She accepted. "Oh, sir," said Lord Newhaven, "you are caught." Johnson said, "Nay, I do not see how I am caught, but if I am caught, I don't want to get free again. If I am caught, I hope to be kept." Then, when the 2 glasses of water were brought, smiling placidly to the young lady, he said, "Madame, let us reciprocate." Lord Newhaven and Johnson carried on an argument for some time concerning the Middlesex election. Johnson said, "Parliament may be considered as bound by law as a man is bound where there is nobody to tie the knot. And it is clear that the House of Commons may expel and expel again and again. Why not allow of the power to incapacitate for that Parliament, rather than have a perpetual contest kept up between Parliament and the people?" Lord Newhaven took the opposite side, but respectfully said, "I speak with great deference to you, Dr. Johnson. I speak to be instructed." This had its full effect on my friend. He bowed his head almost as low as the table to a complimenting nobleman and called out, my lord, I do not desire all this ceremony. Let us tell our minds to one another quietly." After the debate was over, he said, "I have got lights on the subject today which I had not before." This was a great deal from him, especially as he had written a pamphlet upon it. The False Alarm was the name of the pamphlet. Johnson observed, "The House of Commons was originally not a privilege of the people, but a check for the crown on the House of Lords. I remember Henry VIII wanted them to do something. They hesitated in the morning, but did it in the afternoon. He told them, 'It is well you did, or half your heads should have been upon Temple Bar.' But the House of Commons is now no longer under the power of the crown, and therefore must be bribed." He added, "I have no delight in talking of public affairs." Sure. Of his fellow collegian, the celebrated Mr. George Whitefield, he said, "Whitefield never drew as much attention as a mountebank does. He did not draw attention by doing better than others, but by doing what was strange. Were Astley to preach a sermon standing upon his head on a horse's back, he would collect a multitude to hear him. But no wise man would say he was made a better sermon for that. I never treated Whitefield's ministry with contempt. I believe he did good. He had devoted himself to the lower classes of mankind, and among them he was of use. But when familiarity and noise claim the praise due to knowledge, art, and elegance, we must beat down such pretensions." What I have preserved of his conversation during the remaining of my stay of London at this time is only what follows. I told him that when I objected to keeping company with a notorious infidel, probably Gibbon, a celebrated friend of ours said to me, this is probably Beauclerk, "I do not think that men who live laxly in the world as you and I do can with propriety assume such an authority. Dr. Johnson may, who is formerly exemplary in his conduct, but it is not very consistent to shun an infidel today and get drunk tomorrow." Johnson said, "Nay, sir, this is sad reasoning. Because a man cannot be right in all things, to be right in nothing. Because a man sometimes gets drunk, is he therefore to steal? This doctrine would be very soon bring a man to the gallows. After all, however, it is a difficult question how far sincere Christians should associate with the avowed enemies of religion. For in the first place, almost every man's mind may be more or less corrupted by evil communications. See the Corinthians. Secondly, the world may very naturally suppose that they are not really in earnest in religion who can easily bear its opponents. And thirdly, if the profane find themselves quite well received by the pious, one of the checks upon an open declaration of their infidelity, and one of the probable chances of obliging their seriously to reflect, which they being shunned would do, is removed. Johnson, I know not why, showed upon all occasions an aversion to go to Ireland, where I proposed to him that we should make a tour. Happy St. Patrick's Day to Johnson. Johnson said, "It is the last place where I should wish to travel." I said, "Should you not like to see Dublin, sir?" Johnson said, "No, sir, Dublin is only a worse capital." I said, "Is not the Giant's Causeway worth seeing?" Johnson said, "Worth seeing? Yes, but not worth going to see." Yet he had the kindness for the Irish nation, and thus generously expressed himself to a gentleman from that country on the subject of a union which artful politicians have often had in view. "Do not make a union with us, sir. We should unite with you only to rob you. We should have robbed the Scotch if they had anything of which we could have robbed them." Of an acquaintance of ours, whose manner and everything about him, though expensive, were coarse, he said, "Sir, you see in him vulgar prosperity." A foreign minister of no very high talents, who had been in his company for a considerable time quite overlooked, happened luckily to mention that he had read some of his Rambler in Italian and admired it much. This pleased Johnson greatly. He observed that the title had been translated Il Genio Errante, though I have been told it was rendered more ludicrously Il Vagabondo. And finding that this minister gave such a proof of his taste, Johnson was all attention to him, and on the first remark which he made, however simple, he exclaimed, "The ambassador says well, His Excellency observes," and then he expanded and enriched the little that had been said in so strong a manner that appeared something of consequence. This was exceedingly entertaining to the company who were present, and many a time afterwards it furnished a pleasant topic of merriment. The ambassador says well, being a laughable term of applause when no mighty matter had been expressed. Sounds like Boswell's a little jealous. I left London on Monday, October 18th, and accompanied Colonel Stewart to Chester, where his regiment was to lie, Lye, for some time. Now a letter. Mr. Boswell to Dr. Johnson, Chester, October 22nd, 1779. Dear Sir, my dear Sir, it was not till 1 o'clock on Monday morning that Colonel Stewart and I left London, for we chose to bid a cordial adieu to Lord Mountstuart, who was to set out on that day on his embassy to Turin. We drove on excellently and reached Lichfield in good time enough that night. The colonel had heard so preferable a character of the George that he would not put up at the 3 Crowns, so that I did not see our host Wilkins. We found at the George as good accommodation as we could wish to have, and I fully enjoyed the comfortable thought that I was in Lichfield again. Next morning it rained very hard, and as I had much to do in a little time, I ordered a post-chaise, and between 8 and 9 sallied forth to make a round of visits. I first went to Mr. Green, hoping to had him to accompany me to all of my other friends, but he was engaged to attend the Bishop of Sodor and Man, who was then lying at Lichfield very ill of the gout. Having taken a hasty glance at the additions to Green's Museum, from which it was not easy to break away, I next went to the Friary, where I at first occasioned some tumult in the ladies, who were not prepared to receive company so early. But my name, which had by wonderful felicity come to be so closely associated with yours, soon made all easy. And Mrs. Cobb and Miss Adier reassumed their seats at the breakfast table, which they had quitted with some precipitation. They received me with the kindness of an old acquaintance, and after we had joined in a cordial chorus to your praise, Mrs. Cobb gave me the high satisfaction of hearing that you said, Boswell is a man who I believe never left the house without leaving a wish for his return. And she afterwards added that she bid you tell me that if ever I came to Lichfield, she hoped I would take a bed at the Friary. From thence I drove to Peter Garrick's, where I also found a very flattering welcome. He appeared to me to enjoy his usual cheerfulness, and he very kindly asked me to come when I could and pass a week with him. For Mr. Garrick's I went to the palace to wait on Mr. Seward. I was first entertained by his lady and daughter, he himself being in bed with a cold, according to his valedictorian custom. Is he the one with the hypochondriac? Is he the hypochondriac? I think he might be. But he desired to see me, and I find him dressed in his black gown, with a white flannel nightgown above him, so that he looked like a Dominican friar. He was good-humored and polite, and under his roof, too, my reception was very pleasing. I then proceeded to Stowe Hill, and first paid my respect to Mrs. Gastrell, whose conversation I was not willing to quit, but my sand glass was now beginning to run low, as I could not trespass too long on the colonel's kindness, who obligingly waited for me. So I hastened to Mrs. Aston's, whom I found much better than I feared I should. And there I met a brother-in-law of these ladies, who talked much of you, and very well too, as it appeared to me. It then only remained to visit Mrs. Lucy Porter, which I did, I really believe, with sincere satisfaction on both sides. I am sure I was glad to see her again, and as I take her to be very honest, I trust she was glad to see me again, for she expressed herself so, that I could not doubt of her being in earnest. What a great keystone of kindness, my dear sir, were you that morning? For we were all held together by our common attachment to you. I cannot say that I ever passed 2 hours with more self-complacency than I did those two at Lichfield. Let me not entertain any suspicion that this is idle vanity. Will not you confirm me in my persuasion that he who finds himself so regarded has just reason to be happy? We got to Chester about midnight on Tuesday. Here again I am in a state of much enjoyment. Colonel Stewart and his officers treat me with all the civility I could wish, and I play my part admirably. Latius Alice sapiens sibi, the classical sentence which you, I imagine, invented the other day. See page 1034. All right, I'm going to look it up because I can't remember what that means. 1034. Let's see if I can find it. That wasn't that long ago, was it? I got a bad memory. 1034. Let's see. Where's the Latin on this page? Happy with others, wise than alone. When alone, I believe, is the one we're looking for. Alice Laetius sapiens sibi. Happy with others, wise when alone. That's good. That'd be good on a tombstone. Anyway, is exemplified in my present existence. That saying. The bishop, to whom I had the honor to be known several years ago, shows me much attention, and I am edified by his conversation. I must not omit to tell you that his lordship admires very highly your prefaces to the poets. I am daily obtaining an extension of agreeable acquaintance, so that I am kept in animated variety. In the study of the place itself, by the assistance of books and of the bishop, is sufficient occupation. Chester pleases my fancy more than any town I ever saw, but I will not enter upon it at all in this letter. How long I shall stay here I cannot just say. I told a very pleasing young lady Miss Latia Bernston, niece to one of the Prebennaries, the Reverend Roger Barnston, at whose house I saw her. I have come to Chester, madame. I cannot tell how, and far less can I tell how I am to get away from it. Do not think me too juvenile. I beg of you, my dear sir, to favor me with a letter while I am here, and add to the happiness of a happy friend who is ever, with affectionate veneration, most sincerely yours, James Boswell. There's a P.S. here. If you do not write directly so as to catch me here, I shall be disappointed. 2 lines from you will keep my lamp burning bright. Oh, and you'll have to wait till tomorrow for Johnson's response to that letter. Till next time, bye from Boswell.